All right, so today we're diving deep into something pretty fascinating. We're going to be looking at how the jobs people have change as their country gets richer.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting topic, and we've got some great research here that really unpacks how the whole economy shifts, as countries develop, especially looking at agriculture, manufacturing, and services.
Yeah, and those three big buckets, right? Agriculture, manufacturing, services. There seems to be like a pretty clear pattern when you look at how richer countries, they've kind of already gone through this whole economic transformation, and you can kind of see that same thing happening now in other parts of the world.
You're absolutely right. Like if you look at the historical pattern in Europe during the Industrial Revolution or even more recently, those Asian economies that focused on exports, countries like South Korea or China, they kind of went through this similar shift in where people were working.
So let's talk about this pattern, like what actually happens as a country starts to get richer? What happens to the jobs?
Well, it's kind of like a step-by-step thing. Like at first you have a lot of people working in agriculture, right? That's like the starting point for a lot of countries. But then as the country develops, things start to change. Manufacturing starts to grow, and that pulls people away from the farms and into the cities, into factories.
Yeah, makes sense, right? More opportunity, maybe better pay. It's kind of like a natural progression.
Exactly. It's like those manufacturing jobs, they often pay better and there's more room to move up, build a career. But then here's the interesting part. As people start earning more, they start wanting more services.
Oh, yeah, I see what you mean. Instead of everyone cooking all their meals at home, suddenly they're eating out more, or instead of cutting their own hair, they're going to salons.
Right. It's those everyday things that people start paying for when they have more money. And that's where the whole service sector really explodes. It starts drawing in people from both agriculture and manufacturing. It's kind of like this big shift in the whole workforce. Think about it like in your own life, do you use more of those specialized services now than you did, say, 5 or 10 years ago?
Definitely. It's hard to imagine life without them now. And it's interesting to see how that's happening globally, too. But here's a bit of a head scratcher. Even though you see fewer people working in manufacturing as a country gets richer, the funny thing is, manufacturing still plays a huge role in the economy.
Oh, absolutely. And that's all thanks to productivity. See, what happens is manufacturing gets super efficient, which means you need fewer people to make a lot more stuff. So companies can actually produce things more cheaply, which in the end helps the economy keep growing.
So what you're saying is like the driver behind all these shifts is that increase in productivity, right?
Exactly. It all boils down to productivity. When manufacturing gets more efficient, it creates more wealth and people's incomes go up. And with more money in their pockets, they want more services. And boom, you've got this whole cycle of economic growth. It's fascinating, isn't it? But this shift towards services, as much as it's a good thing, like it shows progress, it does make you think about the future of work?
Yeah, it's almost like a double-edged sword in a way. You got all this progress, but it also raises these new questions like what skills will people need for these new service jobs?
Mm,
How do we even prepare for jobs that might not even exist yet?
exactly. It's a whole new world of work we're moving into.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground here, from how those jobs shift from farms to factories and then into services, all thanks to rising productivity. But I think the most important thing to remember is that if most of the jobs in the future are going to be in services, then education and training, they become absolutely crucial because we need to be ready, right?
Couldn't agree more.
And it makes you wonder, what kind of skills are we going to need in a world dominated by services? I think that's something worth really thinking about as we try to navigate this constantly changing economic landscape. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
It was my pleasure.
And for all of you listening,
Uh-huh.
keep those brains churning.